Did you know the first time Vantage was used on an Aston Martin was way back in 1951? They applied it to a special high-performance version of the DB2 Coupe, one that featured a fire-breathing 125 horses under the hood, an increase of 20 over the standard car. How quaint. This right here is the totally redesigned Aston Martin Vantage as the brand's hardcore sports car. I can assure you it is much, much more powerful than its ancestor, something you realize immediately when you fire it up. This internal combustion music is provided by a 4-liter twin-turbocharged V8 that's rated at 503 brake horsepower and 505 foot-pounds of torque, roughly 4 times as many ponies as the original Vantage could muster. It spins a high-tech carbon fiber driveshaft encased in an aluminum torque tube, which in turn feeds twist to a rear-mounted 8-speed automatic transmission. A 7-ratio manual will be offered at a later date. However, a V12 engine will not, even though one technically fits under the Vantage's hood. This car is the British brand's latest 2-door, 2-seat lust machine, a much harder-edged vehicle than the more gentlemanly DB11. For testing purposes, Aston Martin invited us to the Iberian Peninsula once again, and this tiny corner of continental Europe is bathed in glorious sunshine, something we've had a major deficit of back home in Detroit. The roads here in southern Portugal are freaking amazing. They are in immaculate condition, and at this time of year, practically nobody is here, which makes this a perfect place for testing a sports car like the Vantage. Of course, the last Aston Martin I drove was their DB11 Volante, which is the brand's convertible Grand Tourer. And one of the first things you notice about the Vantage here compared to the DB11 is just how much smaller it feels. Now, the overall body length is less by nearly a foot. Also, it's a bit shorter to the ground and way lighter. Now, how much weight did it lose? Well, try more than 500 pounds, and those changes make a huge difference when you're hustling this car through some tight mountain roads and avoiding cyclists. Hi. There's just this incredible sense of immediacy to the way the Vantage here moves, whether it's the steering, the braking, the acceleration. We'll get to acceleration in just a minute. It's just so direct and precise. This is obviously the true sports car in Aston Martin's range, and you can feel that from the first mile you go down the road. Unlike the DB11, which I mentioned is more of a grand touring car, which means it's a bit softer, built for long-distance driving, this car is razor sharp all the time. The Vantage's steering ratio is a quick 2.4 turns lock to lock, identical to the DB11's, but it changes direction with much greater verve, and this is because the wheelbase is so much shorter and because the rear subframe is rigidly mounted. Offering a bit of customization, the dampers and powertrain are independently tunable via a pair of buttons on the steering wheel. 3 modes are available for each: Sport, Sport Plus, and Track. For street use, I found Sport worked best for the chassis and Sport Plus for the rest, which yielded predictable, repeatable, breath-snatching performance. All right, that is 0 to 60. The car will do it in about 3.5 seconds, which is frickin' insane. But it's not like a sledgehammer. It doesn't just beat you up. It's this constant building wave of torque that just rockets you down the road. And if you're curious, that 500 plus horsepower and 500 plus foot-pounds of torque give you a top speed of 195 miles an hour. There's more than enough space in this car. Now, behind these bucket seats, you do get enough room for a large duffel bag, plus there's the trunk, which is pretty generous in size, certainly more than enough for 2 people, at least for a weekend getaway. All in, there's more than 12 cubic feet of storage space in the Vantage, about 350 liters worth. And another number of note is 20, the diameter in inches of the standard wheels. Forged rims of the same span are on the options menu. Moving inside, the very lucky driver and one of his or her closest companions is treated to a premium cabin trimmed in loads of leather or Alcantara, depending on preference, though all is not perfect. As in the DB11, which shares the same basic structure, large A-pillars tend to get in the way, while the sun visors are largely ineffective, being quite small and not swiveling to the side for greater protection from glare. Road noise is also an issue on Portugal's motorways, which, to be fair, are grittier than a gravel pit. Gummy soft Pirelli P0 tires aren't afraid to let their voices be heard either. But you can never really stretch a modern exotic car's legs on public roads. I mean, to truly evaluate a car such as the Vantage, you've got to find a closed circuit, even if it means bending the rules. Well, just a little. I've removed my very stylish and comfortable woolen sport coat and convinced the powers that be to let me out on the track here sans a helmet. I mean, I certainly didn't sneak out here at lunchtime when everyone else was eating. I can assure you of that. So this is the Algarve International Circuit here in southern Portugal. This is a surprisingly technical course with lots of elevation change, but it's no worry because the Vantage here is more than up to the challenge. This car really comes into its own on a closed circuit where you can extract everything that it has to offer. The grip is absolutely tenacious, the brakes are fantastic, and of course, the steering is incredibly sharp. The car changes direction with just such finesse. Helping provide that balanced driving feel, this is the first Aston Martin fitted with an electronic rear differential. This unit cooperates with the vehicle's stability control system to send torque to the appropriate wheel for better cornering performance at low and medium speeds, as well as enhanced stability when going all out. Unlike a mechanical limited slip differential, this one can go from open to fully locked in mere milliseconds. Making this vehicle all the more pleasant to drive on track is the ample headroom it has inside. Wearing a helmet is no issue in the Vantage. Unlike some rival vehicles, you don't have to have your noggin cocked uncomfortably to one side or the seat back angled way far back to clear the headliner. It's not just the engine and raw power that's necessary when you're driving on a racetrack. Stopping is just as important, if not more important, and the cars that we're testing here on the circuit are all equipped with the optional carbon ceramic brakes. They will haul this car down from 250 plus kilometers an hour time after time after time. They have incredible bite and are very resistant to fading. Now, if you do back-to-back hot laps, I did notice after probably 15-20 minutes of driving, they did lose a bit of their stopping capacity. Scared me a little bit a couple times just because they were pushed beyond their envelope, but the threshold there is quite high and they last far longer than the stock iron rotors ever would under such punishment. If you're curious, those optional binders are estimated to cost an additional £6,995, roughly $10,000, though they will not be available immediately at launch, so if you want a track-ready Aston Martin, you're going to have to wait a little bit. The sounds it makes, the steering feel, the balance, it's all very confidence-inspiring. It's always goading you to go a little bit faster, dip a little bit deeper into the throttle, push it through the next apex. It's really enjoyable. The 2019 Aston Martin Vantage is on sale right now with deliveries in the US and Canada expected to begin in the summer. Base price is around $150,000, though if you live in the provinces and or territories, that means Canada, plan on shelling out at least $173,000 to park one in your garage. Whether you're on public roads or circling a racetrack at the very limit, Aston Martin's all-new Vantage will put a smile on your face. It's beautifully aggressive, sounds exotic, and drives with rare finesse, core attributes that really haven't changed over the last 6 decades. Now, if I can only find out who has the keys to that vintage example over there, I would love to take it for a spin. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the AutoGuide.com YouTube channel to get all of our latest features and vehicle reviews.